Curt Mills, welcome to the Dispatch podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
Well, Curt, this is our second attempt at this. Last time, a few weeks ago, my internet failed in my attempt to do this, and then you went off traveling for a little bit and finally able to do this. So I really appreciate you joining. As I mentioned at the beginning of our last failed attempt, I probably have some mean tweets about you online, and I felt, well, might as well have you on the podcast and talk about what I think is a very different view than me and a lot of people perhaps at the Dispatch. Yeah. Let me start here. After the October 7th, 2023 attacks, there were a lot of commentators on the right talking about it, particularly Jewish commentators. There was Tucker Carlson going around saying, why are they focused on a foreign country? What happened there? We have fentanyl problems in the United States. And now you see, and I associate kind of the Tucker wing of the party being kind of the American conservative and Steve Bannon. They're kind of in this oasis. But now you see on Tucker's podcast, almost entirely like devoted to Israel. It's hard to get an episode that doesn't mention it or focus on it. Your Twitter account, seems pretty devoted to the topic of Israel. Why is this wing so interested in Israel or so focused on it?
Well, I confess, I don't really remember what Tucker was saying around 24 months ago on this. The most poignant thing that stands out to me was Trump's messaging on it, which was far from clear. I mean, if you might remember a controversy where he literally complimented the military prowess of Hezbollah. The fissures on the right aren't just generated by the media. They've been generated by, I think, the statements that have been made by Trump over the years, the changes of the Republican Party and the conservative movement over the last 10 years. And so I just not prepared to comment on anything that Tucker said in October. And I also think Bannon's messaging has evolved in the last year. And so I don't remember him saying anything to this effect, at least so stridently 2 years ago. And then additionally, I think in general, I think a lot of the right deferred to Israel in the first 3 to 6 months of the war. So again, not to just try to avoid the technicality. To answer your question, though, why I think Tucker shows a little more balance than you present it, but I'll take your point about my own public commentary. I think it's being driven by Israel, which is that this is a forever war, and this is a forever war in which a foreign government is continually leveraging its ties and influence in the United States to get the U.S. involved. If this was, and I know people who don't share my perspective, repeatedly point out, there's a lot of wars going on. Why do I not talk about this? Why do I not talk about the Congo-Rwanda war or the arguable genocide in Sudan? I think the answer is very simple. None of the parties in that war in general are asking for U.S. largesse to back a belligerent in the war versus the Israelis are, pretty openly.
Can I just step in? There have been, obviously the Saudis in Yemen, the death toll there is much greater, and they buy American F-16s and F, whatever the newest model is.
That was over though. If this was 2017, 2018, you can go. I played a little straighter than I back then than I do now, and just reporting wise. But if you go back to 17, 18, I was covering the Yemen war. I don't see any major difference. I'm against this. I'm against this in Russia, Ukraine. I'm against this in Israel, Palestine. I'm against this in Israel, Iran. I'm against intervening in civil wars for dubious national interests. It's a pretty clean principle.
We'll get into kind of delve into some of those in a little bit, but I went back and tried to see what you tweeted after October 7th, and a lot of it was just analysis. But you did write an article, and it kind of ties in with the recent Iran strike. You wrote in the article, the heads of Saudi and Iranian governments, which were blood enemies at the beginning of 2023, just spoke on the phone on the need to oppose crimes against the Palestinians and pledge Islamic unity. This stuff couldn't have a more summer 1914 feel. That's a tweet. That actually wasn't an article, alluding to World War I. Recently, before the Iran strike, I don't know if you particularly, but kind of the wing kind of warned about a potential World War III.
I think this has become like a fake leitmotif. I think Carlson went pretty out there, but like not everything is World War III. Not everything is World War II. Like the idea that like it didn't happen doesn't really like falsify the critiques. Like,
well, but if you're alluding to a potential World War III, it does kind of suggest that perhaps maybe. So here, let me phrase it this way.
I think the U.S. could do an Iran war. I mean, I think the U.S. could do an Iran war. It would be extremely costly, and I think we would be on the hook for rebuilding and handling the refugees from said war. I don't know if that would be World War III. It could be, but I think it would be.
So I guess how would it be? Is my question. I mean, I don't like.
China and Russia got involved. I mean, there were.
But is there any chance?
No.
But I mean, I guess on my side, the people would see these suggestions.
Like, I mean, like what threat? Like the Iranians on the table right now is a better deal than JCPOA, or was on the table before the Israelis sabotaged it. So like why would we do this? And then Israel Palestine, I think we've had a response to October 7th from Israel at this point, and the actual source of instability there is that the Israelis will not give the Palestinians a state in their ancestral homeland. Which, I mean, like, if that's what you think U.S. foreign policy should be about, expelling.
That's the current issue with what Israel's doing there.
I mean, this is what's. I mean, like, fundamentally, I think they want to annex the West Bank, and they want to annex Gaza and redevelop it. And they're appealing to the president's vanity to try to get that done. And I think from there, I think they want to continually erode any Muslim power that gets in their way. So the biggest Muslim power that's in their way right now is Iran, and if they topple Iran, I think they'll go to Egypt, Turkey, and I don't see this getting any better. I mean, to an extent, Netanyahu may be a stabilizing force in Israeli politics. I think the future looks a lot more like Prime Minister Smotrich.
Well, I was going to get to that a little later, but your interpretation of Israel's attack on Iran, their nuclear program.
Well, their attack to try to draw in the Americans, but okay, yeah. I mean, like that was a plan. I mean, they had no plan to do their own war.
I still don't think we're sure of whether I think the recent David Ignatius column in the Post suggests that the U.S. wanted to wait to see how successful Israel's strike was and then decide what they were going to do, which would explain the initial Rubio statement at the end of the war.
Well,
so we don't know to what extent there was
states things within 12 hours. Rubio immediately messaged that the U.S. had nothing to do with it. So, like, I disagree with the. I mean, I went on the Aaron Matei show, the night of the attack, or the next night of the attack. He was subbing in for Jimmy Dore. So this is sort of like, I don't know where Jimmy's politics are. I don't know. But like Aaron Matei, I think it's fair to say, like left-wing, anti-war kind of person. And like, I had an argument with him at the time being like, this wasn't coordinated in any real way between the U.S. and the Israelis. And like, that's like, that gets me in trouble among other restraint anti-war voices, etc. I think like the forensic evidence is that Netanyahu gambled. The initial attack impressed the president of the United States. He wanted a piece of the action, and then once he realized that the consequence of a piece of the action was a potential war, he got out and then started castigating Netanyahu again. I think that's what the Ignatius piece said.
My kind of neither here nor there. My recollection is that the president wanted to see how the initial. He wasn't saying don't do it. He wanted to wait.
I think they had a yellow light. They had a yellow light. We can get into why they had a yellow light.
I guess my larger question is your interpretation of why Israel wanted to strike Iran's nuclear program doesn't account for any real fear by Israel of a nuclear Iran.
Yeah, I don't think they're that afraid of it. I think it is a fundamentally like fabricated issue.
Do you think among Israelis themselves? Because that's where I see a big disconnect.
I can't psychoanalyze the man on the street in Tel Aviv.
You can talk to people that understand Israeli politics.
But I mean, again, self-selecting. I generally talk to journalists and people associated with the government. So like these are by definition, I think, more plugged-in people. One would assume, and I think in general, the Iran nuclear issue has been an issue meant as a stalking horse or a substitute for talking about Iran regime change. And the evidence of that is any time Iran is interpreted as weak, all of a sudden, it's just like regime change, make Iran great again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. and how loose the talk is. And then additionally, I mean, the arguments against reasonable deals that keeps the Iranians at very low levels of enrichment, that have above ground inspections, American inspectors. These are all things the Iranians have been open to.
Why do you think Israel cares about Iran at all? I mean, what makes them even care about Iran?
I think Iran is a naturally, one of the most powerful countries in the Middle East. I think Israel distrusts basically every other country in the Middle East for somewhat understandable reasons. And then I think Iran is, it's not in the world system. It's an Islamic power. It's in the name. It's unambiguous. It's.
Do you think that your explanation does not account for them funding terror groups that have targeted Israel, that Hezbollah, which had
I think
hundreds or 200,000 missiles on Israel's border.
I think a lot of
the elimination of Israel.
These things don't occur in a vacuum. I don't think the Islamic Republic would exist if Israel had come to a accommodation with the Palestinians in the 60s. Political Islam itself is an outgrowth of Israeli militarism and arrogance.
What did Israel do to Iran to get them to be defensive or offensive by putting proxies all around Israel?
I mean, I think it's a well-documented fact that political Islam began rising throughout the region in the 60s and 70s. There was an attempted revolution in Saudi. They occupied the holy sites. The government put it down. Most of these revolutions failed. The one in Iran did not, which is, again, not what people would have predicted. You would have predicted a Sunni power would become like this, very similar to communism. You would have predicted Germany or France would become like this, not agrarian Russia. That's the way it happened. They are in that sense. Yeah.
Just to be clear, in that explanation, why Iran cares about Israel or Israel cares about Iran, the genesis here is not anything Israel did to Iran. Like, Israel didn't say after 79, let's start a war with Iran.
Israel did not reach an accommodation with the Palestinians, making the Palestinian issue a war cry throughout the Muslim world. And I think political actors capitalized on that. And I think the Israelis, if they wanted to maximize their safety, would come to an accommodation with the Palestinians. But that's not really what they're about. They're about a larger, greater Israel, which they feel makes them safer. And a lot of that is born clearly, and I say this as a Gentile American, clearly born out of anxiety from what happened in World War II. And a lot of that is very sympathetic. I also fail to see how this is an American issue. And I also fail to see how this is in the interest of the Israeli people. I think what I see is
kind of trying to focus on
capital flight from Israel. I see people leaving. I see the country become isolated.
The stock market just reached all-time high after the Iran strike.
I don't know what religious terrorist state. I mean, I don't think this is even working for Israel.
I think the stock market just hit an all-time high after the Iran war in Israel, and they have a pretty large tech boom. But I kind of still want to focus on this. Iran, which is a Shia power, as you mentioned, doesn't seem that concerned about other Muslim suffering.
They are seen by the Arab street in a lot of ways as far less corrupt than the Arab leaders. That they are the protector of Hamas in a sense.
Who are they allies with China?
Iran?
Yeah.
I think they're very loose allies. I think the axis of autocracies are overstated. I think they don't have formal alliances. They don't have formal alliances with Iran.
What? They're friends with Iran. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to go to China.
I think it's a tough neighborhood. I think on the scale of.
I guess my point is they didn't care too much about the Uyghurs, the Muslim Uyghurs. This is not like a power.
Right. Yeah, obviously there's hypocrisy. So this is my answer. So if one being arch enemies, let's say the relationship between Israel and Iran is a 1, and let's say the relationship between the United States and France is an 8, then I think the relationship between Iran and China is a 6, maybe a 7, and then accordingly China's a big dog, and so there's going to be hypocrisy. You get to be anti-Israel, and you don't get to be anti-China on the Uyghurs. It's not that crucial.
But that gets back to my original point, I guess. Your explanation of why Israel is worried about Iran, that why they attacked Iran, initially gave no prospect that they cared about the threat from Iran. And my initial point was, why does Israel care about Iran in the first place? And it's because Iran started a conflict with Israel by funding proxies and terror groups surrounding them. But that doesn't seem to jive with you. You seem to think it's only.
I didn't say the first part, and I didn't concede the second part. But you can continue. I mean, I didn't say that Iran. What was the first thing you said? Sorry,
the reason why Israel attacked Iran, in your belief, was because they don't like powerful Muslim countries in the region.
Yeah, that's accurate.
But my point was,
and
do you not see the reason why they care about Iran being the fact that Iran made Israel its enemy number one?
Isn't that significant? I answered your question. Iran is a revolutionary state that gained currency and legitimacy with its own population as a defender and opponent of the West and Israel's decadence and overstretch. I mean,
so you believe they gain legitimacy within their own population by standing
sure.
I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure. I think that they might gain legitimacy with the Sunni Arab street. I'm not sure the people within. What is your evidence for that?
The Shah was requisitely unpopular. There was obviously a base level. I mean, go back to the Shah's own interview with Mike Wallace in 1976. He's castigating the Israel lobby. He's castigating Israel's overstretch. He's a monarch. He can do whatever he wants. He's backed by the CIA, and even he felt the need to do this. So obviously the Shah mismanaged the situation. His family's not in charge of Iran. A revolutionary group came in, took over, and this was political tinder for them. I don't think that's controversial.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a little more. They joined
more, but I mean,
communists to take over and then killed the communists and the more left wing activists.
Mired in the details of
I guess I go back. My fundamental point was, it doesn't seem like you think there's a real threat that Israelis feel about Iran or should feel about Iran. Your accounting of it.
Two things. I can't speak for a foreign country. Number one, this is not America's business. But now that we have to talk about this because this country endlessly funds Israel and endlessly supports Israel diplomatically, then I guess I get to have an opinion on Israel. And from sitting here in Washington, D.C., this doesn't seem that rational for Israeli national interests. A lot of people say the exact same thing. I routinely point people to this all the time. The WikiLeaks disclosures of Colin Powell writing to his friends, one email talking about Bill Clinton's paramours. Next email, he says, the Israelis know that they have 200 nuclear weapons that they don't disclose, and they're all trained on Tehran, and the Iranians know that. And so we can get into the Iranian nuclear program, and we want to talk about it. But if the idea is that fine, I'll concede your point because I think you get my gist.
I guess what do you think Israel's goal? Yeah. What do you think Israel? I mean,
change on the American taxpayer.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the region, what do you think their goal is here? I mean, it seems like
flatten any opponent and then get supplicant partners at any level. And by Israel, I mean the greater, I would say, Israeli center-right to far-right project, for lack of a better term, because I don't have anything in common with these two.
Yeah. What's interesting is in your early October 7 tweets, you seem to project what I think is a true opinion, which is that, maybe Netanyahu is going to be this restraining force, because throughout Netanyahu's career, I think Obama, I don't know if it was himself or through someone else, called him, I think, a chicken shit, I think was the term, to Jeffrey Goldberg in The Atlantic, that he was not actually willing to get into long, protracted wars. But yet now you think this is his goal, is to expand to greater Israel. I take it from what I've seen in your tweets.
You'd have to point me to exactly what I said. I mean, I think in the context of, I think Israel was owed a response. I mean, they were attacked. I think Netanyahu had been the leader of the country for 25 years. I thought he was politically underrated at that point. Remember, the assumption was that he wouldn't be in power very long. I said publicly that I thought he would be. And then additionally, I observed that Netanyahu was relatively moderate within his own coalition. But I mean, that doesn't put aside that like Netanyahu has 3 decades, maybe 4 decades of a record of advocacy of trying to get the United States involved in the region militarily, And we can, this was observed by James Baker, Secretary of State, when I was 1 year old.
We'll get to that in a second. But let me just ask you this. If on October 7th, someone were to tell you less than 24 months later, the Iranian nuclear program would be in tatters, which I think it is. I don't know if you agree with that. The Hezbollah, which had hundreds or 200,000 rockets in its north, would be, decimated, not really as a real functional threat anymore. Would you consider that a success for Israel in its fight after October 7th? And let me add two more things there because I think they're relevant. That in this 24 period, while they're doing that, they have not lost a single member of the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords are still intact, in that from reports, there is still potential, depending what occurs and how the Gaza war ends, for Saudi Arabia and others to join the Abraham Accords. If that was what you were told that would happen 18, 20, 22 months after October 7th, would you consider that as a success for Israel?
Weinstein, I think that's a very smart framing, but I'm not sure it's an honest framing, and I think you know that. I don't know that. What is your framing? They have paid a price. They have isolated themselves globally. I mean, by my count, they basically have a section of the American right wing. That section happens to govern the country at the moment, so it's very, very useful. But I think we all know it won't govern the country permanently, and it won't be the right wing status quo forever, very conceivably. And then additionally, you mentioned the Abraham Accords. I think they have very much made it unlikely that the Abraham Accords get substantially expanded with the one member they want, which is Saudi. And number two, they have inflated or depreciated the value of what it means to be in the Abraham Accords. It's going to be all for naught if Ahmed al-Sharaz Syria joins this thing and people just sort of pro forma joins this thing, and it's not really a real defense pact. And I see a Muslim world that is far more united around, I don't want to say united around Iran, but like against an Iran war. I mean, go back to where we were 10 years ago. Israel actually had allies in Arab capitals without formal agreements, right? Like UAE, Saudi were advocating very hawkish, hardline stuff that would be manna from heaven for the Israeli right wing. And they tried a lot of this stuff. The blockade on Qatar, the Yemen war, these things were catastrophes. They were amateur hour. It didn't work. And I fail to see how this works. Yeah, Israel has had a lot of tactical success. I don't think that can be denied. I just don't see the strategic framework. And I don't think you're going to get a strategic framework from a guy who makes decisions day in from day out. Smart guy, wouldn't want to be on his wrong side. I guess probably am, but like day in, day out. But I don't see any long-term strategy for Israel here. And I do think in the long term, Netanyahu may be remembered as the greatest enemy of the Israeli people.
Certainly after October 7th, his failure, I think a lot of people would
I think
Israel
he's setting himself up.
Agree with you. But what makes you think that, first of all, I mean, there's a lot in there.
Sure.
You think that Netanyahu wants America to put boots on the ground to do
no
Iraq style?
Unclear. I mean, don't build up this like straw man of what I'm saying.
You're saying like they want America to do something about regime.
Sure. I mean,
what do you think they want him to do?
They don't know. Like they will go in on the initial strikes with Iran in theory. They will try to get the Americans involved as much as possible, and then they will urge them to get involved as much as they have an appetite for. And then if Iran is a mess, we know what they'll do, which is, at least by the record of the war on terror in the last 25 years, which is they're not going to be that involved. And they're not going to accept refugees. And they're not going to spend money on rebuilding this country. That's going to be America's problem.
Kurt, isn't it the opposite? I hear that. It seems like what we just saw is the opposite of what you suggested, that Israel led a strike. America came and delivered, the thing that only America could do to set back Iran's nuclear program. Iran was so coward that they did a performative response, and now Israel and America are in our position to monitor, because they seem to know everything that goes on in Iran. I don't think you don't think so. Nuclear progress. And this is
look at the record of Iraq. We didn't know anything. Like, I mean, seriously. Like,
Israel seemed to know every one of their nuclear scientists.
We didn't know anything. We didn't know if they had weapons. We didn't know that Saddam Hussein was writing novels and barely running the country. We don't know anything about Iran. CIA probably knows more than you and me.
At what point will you admit that Iran was I mean, this seemed to be a stunning success both for the U.S. and Israel. I'm not sure where you're saying that.
I think we know that Israel has a powerful military. I think we know the U.S. has a powerful military.
Do you think that they could do that to Iran without losing? I mean, did you think Israel and the U.S. could mount that type of operation and sophistication?
False question. Yes, I think the Israelis are more militarily powerful than the Iranians. I think the Americans are more militarily powerful than the Israelis. I don't think we need to war game in real life with real lives and real dollars to see that that's true, and I don't see what the point of this is.
Well, I think this is like non-falsifiable. Is there anything that you could, in 5 years looking back, say, I was wrong about, Israel and the U.S. and Iran? Like, is there anything that would say, you know what, Donald Trump was right with, what we should do in Iran? I was wrong.
Donald Trump has had a lot of opinions. So, this is very cleverly phrased. If Donald Trump fires J.D. Vance and deports him and makes Mark Levin the vice president, and if they bomb Iran and they send commandos in there and they make Mark Levin or Mark Levin's crony or the Shah in charge of Iran, and it is a glorious democracy with full representation, and there are zero refugees to Europe and zero refugees.
Calling for this? I mean, this is not something. What
you say? No.
I'm saying, what would you say, in retrospect, say that Trump was right about Iran?
Hypothetical then, if this is so important. What is your hypothetical that you want me to say yes or no?
I'm saying that there is no, saying this operation, if it doesn't lead to Iran secretly developing a nuclear weapon, which I think you.
But it's not over. This isn't like, it's not like they have one ask. Like, it's not like, oh, hey, we really, 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 really want you to bomb Ferdinand, and then it's over. That's that's not going to happen.
I think Trump has hinted that there may be more strikes.
For instance, this month, a new war in the fall, and then they want to occupy Gaza by October 7th. And then guess who they're going to call for all of this? The United States of America.
Well, actually, I think Donald Trump put his hand up even before anyone asked and said he wanted to build Trump Mar-a-Lago version in.
Sure, I'm against that. I'm against that.
I don't think the Israelis ever asked for that. I don't think they ever asked him to do that.
No, he sat up there grinning like an idiot.
What is he supposed to do? He's supposed to fight his
No, you could say no. You could actually say no. That's actually not in our country's national interest. I think that's irresponsible. I'm not sure that's good for Israeli self-image. We shouldn't do that.
So you tweeted. I think this was the day we're supposed to do the recent interview. Like someone said something that Pakistan's next. Bibi's going to attack Pakistan next. You go likely Turkey. Why do you say it in that term? By the way, you did it today too. You used the non-American version of it.
Is this like a 2006 I'm gay or something? Like, I mean,
no, it's interesting.
That's what the country's calling itself.
Yeah, but yes, it will never end. You think Israel wants to attack Turkey?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, all things. I mean, Israel being again like a contingent of the country that wins most of its elections. So yes, no. I mean,
what is the contingent of the country that wins most of the elections?
The center right. I mean, when was the last time Labor won an election?
2000. Pretty divided government, but I would say it's.
It's been Netanyahu or Bennett my entire adult life.
Yeah. So you think Bennett and Netanyahu want to attack Turkey?
I don't know their brains, but like my understanding of the intellectual sphere on the right in Israel is that they're very concerned about Erdogan. I have been told that at some of these meetings that Netanyahu's had with White House officials that he talks more about Turkey than Iran. You could view that as he cares more about it. I don't. I think if he views Iran as a fait accompli, and he can get Turkey up next.
I mean, the reason I wonder this, because it's not, to me, my understanding reality of Israel on the ground. I mean, Israel's is mainly at this point a reservist force. These people have jobs. There's an economy, a vibrant economy they want to get back to. Sure. They seem, I think the polls show that a plurality at least wanted the attack on Iran because they saw it as a threat, but they're not looking to go to endless conflicts. They'd like to go back to an economy. Do you see that this is a garrison state?
It's very convenient to have that opinion, especially if another country will do your wars for you.
What wars does America? No, time out.
At a sugar that I guess I would be in favor of that too.
What wars has America done for Israel?
I think that it's very clear that Iraq was heavily influenced by Israel.
That's interesting.
So and then I think in general, I think our posture in the region has been motivated by being dishonest brokers in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and basically very, very, very serious people that have studied the issue and have looked at. I mean, I'll just give you. Do you think David Petraeus is a liar? There was a very famous controversy 15 years ago. I mean, not very famous, but notable controversy 15 years ago, where he said, the biggest problem we have for occupying Afghanistan, and I didn't know this when I was in the military, is that this Israel-Palestine thing is really a big deal in the Muslim world. That Arafat's pictures is in tents and cabins and houses in Afghanistan, and it affects our ability to build a durable peace in this country. This happened in 2010.
You're saying that in houses in Afghanistan they had Arafat's picture?
I believe that was something to that quote. Look it up. Petraeus 2010.
I'll look it up. But I think it kind of elides the point. That doesn't mean the Afghan war is because of Israel, but it leads to my question because it's a good tie-in, and then we can continue on this part.
I think we are in this region for three reasons. Yeah. Historically, we are in this region for access to oil. I think we are in this region for navigable tradeways, and I think we're in this region for Israel. I don't think that's a actually ethical reason to conduct foreign policy, but we're not going to talk about the 1950s. I think Suez is fake, as basically exposed this spring. It's not a major U.S. tradeway. I think the vice president was correct during Signalgate. Secondarily, I think we are a net oil exporter. We don't need to, we can figure it out here at home. And number three, I don't think we should do everything Israel asks us.
Yeah. So you tweeted a clip of Netanyahu testifying before Congress in support of the Iraq war.
Yeah.
Should be noted he was not prime minister at the time, and I think the official Israeli government certainly didn't think that was the top priority. They still were more worried about Iran. And you wrote, "It's irrelevant that he was wrong. It worked for him. He pumped and dumped W. He will gladly do the same to Trump." You also had tweets blaming Mark Levin for tricking kind of Trump on Iran.
Trump, but I think he's an influential lobbyist.
Well, I guess, why do you take these what I think are minor people?
It's not minor.
Levin, let me finish. Levin on Iran, Bibi, who was not the prime minister at the time, on Iraq, and you say these are the difference between war and peace. These figures.
So the greatest, the most significant Israeli leader of the last 40 years, just a guy.
He wasn't at the time of Iraq.
He was a former prime minister. I mean,
he had not. He only served a few years.
He was probably the Israeli who had the greatest ties to the United States, and also Israeli who had the greatest ties to American conservatives.
Do you think that had? What percentage do you think that played in Bush's deciding to go? Netanyahu's support for going into Iraq, George W. Bush deciding to go to war in Iraq.
I think Netanyahu has deep ties to the American right, and I think that everybody knew that Netanyahu was going to eventually come back, and I think he was pretty persuasive. Is
there any history book? There's been a lot written about Iraq that said that Bibi Netanyahu was pivotal for.
I didn't say that. You keep setting up these questions.
This is what you said. It's irrelevant. He was wrong. It worked for him. He pumped and dumped W, and he will gladly get the same with Trump. But the suggestion is that W, he pumped. He was the one that was getting W involved in Iraq. It's not a false question. It's like blaming the most insignificant or not very significant figures for American choices.
Okay, I think the Israeli right and neoconservatives pumped and dumped W. How about that? And Netanyahu was a representative of that perspective. That's what I meant to communicate.
But again, I mean, okay, so forget Netanyahu for a second.
Okay.
I can skip back to George W. Bush was the president. Dick Cheney was the vice president.
Yes.
Donald Rumsfeld was Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. These people are not dummies. They're independent actors. You don't think
Bush, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I actually don't think he's a dummy at all. But
he
could be wrong, but I don't think he's
really mediocre for an American president. And I think if he wasn't a president's son, he wouldn't be president.
I think that's true, but okay, then you have a higher opinion of Dick Cheney, I'm sure, and a higher opinion of Don Rumsfeld.
I think Cheney's more like evil, but like
sure,
I think Cheney's more impressive.
Don't they have agency? Any of these three figures?
We can go through all of them. I think Bush, George W. Bush, to be clear, wanted to distinguish himself from his father, and there was always beef between the Reagan people and the HW people. And the Reagan people were, generally speaking, more neoconservative. And after 9/11, especially with all of the sort of received wisdom that part of what lost HW election in 92 was that we didn't go all the way to Baghdad. I don't remember how many times I heard this as a kid. Like, we should have finished off Saddam. Should have finished off Saddam. We should have finished off Saddam. George W. Bush wanted to be more like Reagan, who had been reelected and was a god in conservative circles, versus his wimp loser father. This is a bit of a simplification. And that was the cast of mind for W. Cheney, I think, authentically changed. If you look at Cheney's comments in 93 and 94 about why they didn't go in, he said, the Gulf War only cost, I think low hundreds of numbers of Americans, but for the people who lost their family members who lost, loved ones, that wasn't a cheap war, and we didn't think it was worth it. That was a good man. That was a good Secretary of Defense. I think he got spooked after 9/11, and he changed. Rumsfeld is interesting and probably the person I have the most color on. I think that Rumsfeld didn't make a lot of decisions in his career out of genuine conviction. I think he generally made decisions out of power politics. I think that's revealed in the Errol Morris documentary that's very good on him, The Known Unknown. I think it's revealed in his book. And additionally, I think he was the least committed of the administration to rebuilding Iraq and staying there a long time. So for him, the decision was least dangerous, which of course, destroyed his legacy, destroyed his later life. He couldn't travel internationally easily. He was wrong. So yeah.
I guess this ties into, so you had the day we were going to do the podcast initially a few weeks ago, there was a commentator who said Israel is pushing the U.S. for more strikes on the Houthis, and you commented, "One wonders where these forever wars come from, a true mystery." I mean, I guess, what do you mean by that? And the issue is like, well, it's Levin on Iran, it's Netanyahu, which your whole explanation you just gave there, which may be right, had nothing to do with neoconservatives. It had three figures, unless you consider neoconservatives.
Neoconservatives are a real thing. I don't want to talk about Pedaritz and Crystal in the 30s or City College in New York. It's boring. It's 100 years ago, literally, at this point. Neoconservatives were a real set of intellectuals. They gained currency in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They gained super preeminence by the early 2000s. And they were staffers in the Reagan administration. They were less prominent in the Bush administration. HW, although, very famously, William Crystal, chief of staff at Dan Quayle, so they weren't visible. And then they were around when the U.S. was struck on 9/11, and they were hyper prolific in the 90s building policy for what America should do now that it had won the Cold War. And so political actors, came to sympathize with them and view them as the brains, and thought, they were the smart set. Remember the James Mann phrase for the Bush cabinet, the Vulcans. They were seen as extremely brilliant. And I think a lot of people are brilliant. They're literate, they're hardworking, they're interesting, they're intellectual. I just think some of them have dual loyalties, and I think they're wrong.
Okay. Well, thank you for saying the dual, because that leads. When you portray Levin as the responsible for Iran, you're playing Bibi responsible for Iraq. You say one wonders where the forever wars come from, a true mystery. Talking about Yemen, what wars is Israel?
I think
forever wars primarily.
Writing of Israeli foreign policy creates a forever war scenario for the United States. It's not controversial.
Say that again. I didn't hear it.
Underwriting for the Israeli hard line creates a forever war posture for the United States. And we wonder why we're still in this region. Yeah,
explain that. I actually don't understand what you're saying. Underwriting for the Israeli hard line.
The Israelis want to occupy Gaza. How is that going to happen?
Are you saying generally they want to occupy Gaza, or right?
What is August?
They didn't want to occupy Gaza
August 8th,
until October 7th. where it became an issue where they had to go in.
Let's just like, instead of talking about like the Bush administration, which I'd love to do, but I assume our time is somewhat limited. Let's do August 8th to October 7th. So that's the next 62 days. What does this look like? Netanyahu has said he wants to occupy Gaza. I think maybe he is playing semantics and he wants to liberate Gaza. Whatever. He wants to take over Gaza. How is he going to do that? As far as I can tell, he has a few options. Kill everybody. Go ground by, he's killed a lot of people. I think you have to concede. He's
killed everybody, and I don't think he intends to kill everybody. And actually, I think it's almost, I'm not even sure I think it's a smart move to occupy Gaza.
That's fine, but
it has neither here nor there. One wonders where forever wars come from, a true mystery. Which forever wars is Israel responsible for? Afghanistan? Iraq? What do you blame Israel for here?
I think U.S. involvement on the side of Israel being a dishonest broker in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was a huge motivating pitch for people to join Al-Qaeda. I mean, it's literally like the first line of Bin Laden's grievance.
I used to debate. I think it's not nearly as big as you're suggesting.
Look, if we think,
there's like one main Palestinian that was part of the Arab Afghans.
That's them. Like you're. I think you're intentionally doing this. I don't know. So it comes to me like you're intentionally doing this. It doesn't matter. Literal Palestinians are the hijackers. The Palestinian issue was extremely motivating to radicalize Saudis and Egyptians who flew planes into the buildings.
It was. So actually, if you want to talk about the Egyptians that were part of Al-Qaeda, they're motivated by American support for the dictatorships in Egypt, and that's why they joined Al-Qaeda.
Dictatorships. But Muslim Brotherhood.
Again, which wars do you think is forever wars that America has been involved in? The main ones I can tell are Afghanistan and Iraq. Is Israel responsible for it?
Responsible is strong. I think U.S. being in lockstep with Israel, generally speaking, has created a scenario in which we are in those wars. And yeah, let's go down the line. Afghanistan, Iraq, very clear, in my opinion. Our involvement in Gaza today, Iran, I think Libya is probably murkiest, but Gaddafi was part of the. He had weird ties. It's complex with the Palestinian, cause. So
you think Libya because of Israel?
No, I think that's too simplistic. I said Libya is the most tenuous one, but yeah, I think it had something to do with it for sure. I think our involvement.
I don't think any of those have any like.
I know you don't. I would say
why?
I guess.
What?
I know you don't.
No, but even your link that you're trying to make is that the reason Al-Qaeda was mad at the U.S. and therefore attacked us has something to do with Israel.
Sure.
And therefore, that's why we go there.
Of course it did.
But that wasn't
for every insane.
What was the innovation of Al-Qaeda? The innovation of Al-Qaeda was they wanted to go on offensive jihad internationally because America propped up dictators in their region, including Saudi Arabia, which I don't think we were propping up because of Israel.
I told you that the U.S. historically has three motivations for being in the region: access to resources, navigable trade lands, and Israel. I think I wouldn't have done foreign policy the last 100 years the way we did it. I think it was a mistake. But I think basically two of those rationales are off the board, and they've been coming off the board my entire lifetime. I think it's now basically just Israel.
Let me before I turn to a couple more issues in closing, tell me if this is fair for my takeaway. I'm going to guess you don't think it's fair, but on one hand, Israel's irrational. They shouldn't fear Iran. They're just trying to break up powers in the region. On the other hand, if U.S. didn't support Israel, we wouldn't be attacked and be in all these wars. It's like Israel can't do. Like, what should Israel do?
Israel should work to a two-state solution.
And you don't think they have?
No, not really. And then to the extent that they have tried, they have assassinated leaders that have signed deals.
Yeah, I think.
And yet, Prime Minister of Israel heavily contributed to that assassination openly.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the history. I think that the evidence
it matters. The same guy.
37, 48, 67 1999, 2007, the evidence of.
I think they. Okay, I think that it was a country that was birthed in terrorism. Number one, but from there, I think after 1967, they became a tyrant.
Yeah, but when you say they're, to put a fine point on it, they're responsible for our forever wars, you just mean very loosely.
I'm not sure where I said responsible.
Yeah,
I said from the emanate.
Let's close on a few topics, not necessarily outside it, but you had a tweet just, well, I guess it's somewhat tangentially related, but I'm interested in Epstein. You tweeted earlier today that showed there was a picture, first time I saw it, of Epstein wearing an IDF shirt. You said, just a fun, random sweatshirt Epstein is wearing here. You and many others, Tucker and others, really are confident that Epstein was part of Mossad.
I think he's a prime suspect. I don't know. I'm not.
So I guess why is my question?
Because all of the evidence is publicly available.
Please give it to me.
We don't know how he made his money. We know he has one confirmed client for his personal firm, Leslie Wexner. We know that his paramour / accomplice is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, who is buried in the Mount of Olives and is basically a confirmed Mossad agent. And we know that he has access to, had access to some of those powerful people in the world. And we know that he was running probably some sort of extortion blackmail scheme. All of the properties had cameras in them as far as publicly available. Wasn't invited. I think it stinks. And I think the most obvious ties are to Israel. It is entirely possible that it's greater. It's entirely possible it's U.S. intelligence. We don't fully know, but clearly he had ties to Israel. And he wasn't shy about that. And I think it's weird that the government's covering it up.
Do you think does Israel usually, like when they do secret agents, send like a former prime minister to like visit him?
I'm not
a guy who
guessed. I'm not in the Mossad meetings, you might have guessed.
I know, but I mean, as an intelligence, a top intelligence agency, it seems unlikely that like you would have top leaders openly meeting with someone who's a top secret agent. Would you not?
I actually generally don't understand the question.
If you're a secret, I think Israel just had a bunch of secret agents in Iran.
They created a Jewish. Some people. I think they created Jay Gatsby, effectively, mixed with a sex predator, and that had intelligence purposes very plausibly.
But what do you think? I mean, I think back, like, okay, well, one, I find that odd that like Barak would meet, and again, it could be, I have no idea, but like Ehud Barak would meet with him openly. They would pick a guy who like the most Jewish sounding name of all time, and not someone who wasn't Jewish to be a Mossad agent. And then I wonder, and maybe what do you think they got from it? I mean, Israel really opposed the Iran deal in the 2000s, and every Democrat basically went on board and supported it.
Not the Senate majority.
Wouldn't that be a moment where like you pull out your cards and get people to like, we have these pictures of you, don't support this Iran deal?
You mean like why didn't they like use sexual blackmail in this like?
I mean, that's the implication what they were doing, right?
JCPOA. I mean, I think the allies that they had were like not that pro the JCPOA. I mean, the people that I've talked to were not very confident that if Hillary had won, the JCPOA would have lasted. I mean, I think the JCPOA was basically, and this is where like the people that like are insane and coming after me, I think are somewhat correct, that the JCPOA was like an Obama and his syndicate thing. Like Obama really cared about Iran. He wanted an Iran deal as the linchpin foreign policy legacy of his second term. I think, Kerry was super bought in. I think the Israel lobby's been pretty hard on Kerry, even though he's probably like the most prominent Jewish American in politics.
John Kerry?
He's Jewish by blood. I
think he found out when he was running for president.
He would have been the most Jewish president by blood.
I think he found out while running for president.
Well, fair enough. But it didn't save him anyways. But the point is like, yeah, I think
you're joking about that with the Kerry thing, right? I mean,
what am I joking about? He is Jewish.
He's Jewish, but I don't think that it's a. Well, this is a kind of an interesting tangent. The fact that he might have Jewish blood, do you think that shapes his thinking in any way?
No. If anything, he's hated more because he's like seen as scabbed by probably like, people in the Israeli.
Everyone sees him as Jewish.
My only point is I believe he's literally half Jewish or a quarter Jewish.
Yeah,
and so
I think he found out later in life.
What?
I think he found. I'm almost sure he found out while running for president.
Like for people who routinely cite the Third Reich as the all powerful example, that wouldn't have passed muster in the Third Reich. He would have been in big trouble. But so yeah, I think if he had been president, he would have been by heritage. Didn't say it impacts his thinking anyway. The most Jewish president in American history, and I believe by heritage he was, until Blinken, the Secretary of State, the highest ranking Jewish official in American history by blood. Because he's fourth in line of the presidency. I
think Madeleine Albright technically found out she was Jewish too later.
Okay, that's a good point.
Have you ever asked Steve Bannon about his connection to Epstein? I mean, that seems to be like the get that everyone wants. I mean, Steve stopped responding to me. He's going to do the podcast. He seems to be stopped responding to everybody. Everyone's blaming Israel, and the person that seems to know most about Epstein, maybe of anybody, is Steve Bannon, and yet we can't. Have you talked to him at all?
Trump probably knows more. No, I've not talked to him.
Earlier days, maybe, but maybe not the last 10 years or 15 years.
To an extent, the earlier days are more important. Yeah. I've not asked Steve.
Isn't it a little odd?
That I've not asked him?
He's for Steve, he's leading the charge on the war room about Jeffrey Epstein, and yet he probably knows more about Jeffrey Epstein outside of Donald Trump, perhaps, and Ghislaine Maxwell.
I don't know what he said he's obviously said a lot on Israel. I'm not sure what he said on Epstein, actually. Yeah. I'm not familiar. I don't think it's that odd. I'm happy to, since you're asking about it, I think, Steve is attracted pretty clearly to powerful, interesting, smart people. I think he's a collector of people like that. And I think it makes sense when, Bannon was out of the Trump circle in the 17-18 period that he was attracted to someone like Epstein, wanted to meet him. Steve always had this filmmaker thing. He made, I believe, 5 movies, something like that. So making an Epstein movie, the Epstein Exile movie, was probably super attractive to him. And for Epstein, Bannon was big deal then, big deal now. It made sense as a partnership. I don't know much more than that. I know Michael Wolff's saying a lot about it. I tend to believe most everything Michael Wolff says, frankly. So I would turn you to him as a better resource.
Let me close on these 2 questions. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming you voted for Trump. That might not be the case. Some journalists don't vote. Do you regret voting for Trump?
No.
And final question. There seems to be, from my perspective, and I think a lot of people that read this magazine, an anti-Semitism problem on the right now in media. Do you see that at all, or do you think that is made up?
In the media, you mean in my magazine?
I didn't say your magazine. I'm thinking most explicitly places like Candace Owens and other places like that.
Okay. I don't think our magazine has an anti-Semitism problem.
I wasn't suggesting your magazine.
Yeah, I think there is pretty overt anti-Semitism on some corners of the right. Sure, yeah. But I think there is overt hatred of all races in all stripes across the political spectrum. I think there is a ton of anti-white stuff on the left. Way more than anti-Semitic stuff on the right. And to the extent that my perspective is called woke right by imbeciles, I would submit that people that I don't agree with on the right have all the hallmarks of woke that are on the left. They want speech codes. They want to shut down debate, and I commend you for not shutting down debate today.
Curt Mills, thank you for joining the Dispatch podcast.